about the warrior's only allegiance, what that is, and why Toltec warriors narrow it down to just this one thing, and why it works so well. As with all things Toltec, the idea is not to be juggling 4 or 5 different things at all times in your head or in your life. The idea is to bring things into a consolidated, efficient way that really works. The way warriors do this is a product of thousands of years of development and trials and errors and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Because, as time goes by, there's only so much, all progress is cyclical. There's only so much change that's actually happening in human life. People's concerns 500 years ago, they really were the same concerns that we have now. The format in which those concerns are lived out has changed, but the concerns themselves have not changed. They're the same concerns, everyday concerns, from food, shelter, all these things, like it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That doesn't change. It's the same stuff, except now you can get food by clicking on a computer and you can get it delivered. The expression of those concerns and the experience of those concerns is different, but the concerns don't change. And so warriors started figuring out that if the concerns don't change, then the way to simplify life and create a flow that really works need not be different in different eras, different times, different cultures, need not be different, because the concerns are the same. So the way to flow with those concerns can be very simple and need not be complicated and 3 different things and 5 different things according to the seasons and cultures and this and that and all the rest of it. That is why the warriors came up with this idea of allegiance, the warrior's allegiance. And the warrior's allegiance is really a way to live which takes the pressure off of the person living. But the very fact of existing means that the being which is in existence is going to feel the pressure of living. It's a subtle pressure. In Carlos Castaneda's time, it was described to him as the rolling force. It's a fancy word, and fancy, it conjures up fancy descriptions, and they may have been apt, they may still be apt. However, I just prefer to simplify it down to pressure. It's like the deeper you go in the ocean, the more pressure you feel on yourself. It's the same thing. The very fact of existing, there is a pressure associated with that. Existing on a farmed world where you are being farmed by a parasite predator, you can imagine the pressure is enormous. Suddenly the pressure is very, very high, very high. You're born in a high pressure environment, high stress environment, and you will continue to live the duration of your life in a very high stress, high pressure environment. It doesn't matter if you've gone off to the hills and you're living a rough life in tents to escape, modern life, whatever people think they need to do off-grid. It doesn't matter. You will still have the parasite predator's pressure upon you. You will. It takes one drone nowadays, just one drone. You come out of your lovely off-grid tent or tarp or wherever you've been living, your heavenly life, and you look up and there's a drone hovering just above the tree line. That's all it takes for you to understand what the pressure of the parasite really means. So there's no off-grid, right? Unless you're living in a volcano, inside a volcano, or cave system or something, So the point being, of course, there are ways to kind of escape the parasite predator by hiding under rocks in this earth. Okay, fine. If that's your trip, go for it. You will have a very high stress, high pressure environment that you're dealing with. And the warriors came up with a formula about this. The warriors, the Toltec warriors said, okay, no matter what environment we're in, whether high pressure, low pressure, whether it's a free world or a farmed world, again, the concerns remain the same. And the way to live out and express those concerns and experience life remains the same. So warriors started figuring out, okay, if there is a higher force or the principle of life force that is flowing through each creature, each being, which is experienced as a subtle pressure. How about, instead of resisting that subtle pressure, how about going with that subtle pressure? How about going with it? How about just flowing with that pressure and allowing oneself to become more and more sensitive to that pressure, to that very, very subtle current? And that was a question that took a long time for warriors to answer, because it's a very subtle current that you're following. It's like a scent that your nose doesn't quite understand. You're having to follow that scent. You're going to go off track many times, come back in. Oh yeah, I can have the scent again. And then you continue doing it that way. It takes a long time to develop that faculty. So the warriors started figuring out that once they developed this intent of following this current without resisting it, they found that this life force current, or life itself, you could say, actually has a way to communicate. It has a way to communicate with each being. Personal communication. Personal to each being. However, at the same time, that communication is also impersonal. It really doesn't care whether you live or die, or are happy or sad. It is an impersonal communication, but it is just for you. No one else can use that communication except you. No one else can use that communication except you. It is for you and you alone to understand, and then figure out the direction in which to take in your life. So then this idea of signs and omens came along, which very soon became just basically superstition. In the average man's consensus reality, became superstition. Black cat crossed my path, I will have a bad day. It's a strange nonsense. Ladder, no, black cat passes under the ladder. It's just nonsensical bullshit everywhere, right? Oh, you should not get out of bed with the left foot or the right foot, or your dick out, or some nonsense, just bored idiots thinking of nothing else but just bored nonsense. That's all I can say. So signs and omens are out because it's too, like, what are you gonna do with it? Oh, the crow flew above my head as I was listening to AC/DC. That means AC/DC must love crows. Or what the fuck are you talking about, man? You know, anything can be invented as signs and omens. Oh, I had a sign. I saw 11:11. I saw 12:12. I saw 13:14, 15. I saw 3:3 4 4 5 5. I saw 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Who's going to decide all this nonsense? But people, we are so conditioned to be the perfect Netflix audience now, after 80, 90, I think 80 years of TV and radio and comics and all sorts of stuff, cartoons, and especially Disney. You've all been conditioned to be perfect Netflix audiences, slavering at every little scene, glued for, you can't exist. Your bodies go into shock and withdrawal if you do not get entertained. You can test this out in yourself. Try and be present for 5 minutes, and you will find that you are bored out of your mind. Right? So signs and omens have become superstitions and just reasons to have a little bit of a Netflix hit in that moment. That's out. What else is left? What is left is this peculiar way that life communicates. And there's no way to really tell you, because there's no formula. Life doesn't use any formula. However, there are ways to give you an idea of what to look out for in your life. And it has to do with interpretations. Toltecs contend that everyone's reality is merely a description. It is your description of your reality that is giving you the experience you're having. And all descriptions either arise out of feelings. Well, not either. They arise out of a feeling, a particular feeling, an overarching feeling of your life. And all descriptions end with a feeling. When you choose to describe something a certain way, it'll give you it's coming out of a feeling. You feel a certain way about it. That's how you're describing it. And then that description will result in a feeling for you too. By the way, I've just destroyed Western science. So completely annihilated it. And I invite any YouTube scientists, these keyboard scientists and PhDs, and I don't care what the fuck you got after your name, after your label. I invite you to put your science down in the comments on this channel and watch how it breaks up like little kidney stones. That's all your science is, kidney stones. All reality is a description, and all descriptions arise out of a feeling and return back to a feeling. This is what the parasite absolutely fears about the human power. The luminous being and its power to create descriptions out of a feeling, and then it's as far as you can go from being a machine. And the farmers cannot have you doing this. What do I mean by this? Life is speaking to you as in terms of your life experience. But how you choose to describe what's happening to you is what you will experience as your reality. So here's an example. We just recently got a rehomed dog. And this dog, we get our drinking water from the local spring. It's a very lovely, good spring water. So we went to collect spring water, and I was filling up the cans, and my partner had the dog, and she said, okay, let me just take him out for a little walk around. And the dog decided to roll in some cow dung.